who are the top 10 hardest Elden Ring bosses? Now this question is almost impossible to answer. Elden Ring gives you so many different weapons, builds, and equipment for you to make a boss as easy as you want it to be. It all comes down to multiple variables. Did you use a summon to beat this boss? Were you leveled up enough to fight this boss? Did you get the right equipment to make the boss as easy as possible? So no one will ever agree on the same top 10 list. Everyone fought a boss at a different point with a different build, so it's going to be different for everybody. But I have played through the game 15 times. I even played through the DLC 3 times with all different builds and different weapons. So I wanted to rank the bosses I consistently struggled the most and rank my top 10 hardest bosses in Elden Ring. Number 10, I have Mohg, the Lord of Blood. Now, Mohg is the perfect example of a boss that's only as hard as you want him to be. Mohg can be an incredibly hard fight if you're not properly prepared, starting from his damage, his far-range attacks, his delayed attacks, explosive moves, and maybe the craziest face transition ever. But if you're prepared, the fight can be almost a complete joke, starting from Mohg's Shackle, you can almost completely skip his first phase, or Mohg's Crack Tier that completely avoids his second phase transition. When you have all these items, Mohg goes from an incredibly hard fight to an incredibly easy fight. So even though I think if you're not properly prepared, he can be incredibly hard, I can't deny that those items exist, so I can't put him any higher. Number 9, I have Maliketh the Black Blade. Now, my experience with Maliketh can completely change depending on my build and playthrough. Maliketh is an extremely aggressive boss with a lot of damage. But the thing about him is he doesn't have a lot of health and he stuns easy. So if you're able to stun him, the fight is basically over. But if you can't stun him, you'll most definitely get punished by his aggression and damage. His biggest threat is Destined Death. No matter what level you are, Destined Death can almost one or two shot you. And that's why I think Maliketh is number 9. Number 8, I have Radagon and Elden Beast. Now, at some point, I would have put this fight a lot higher, maybe even in my top 3. Originally, when I first played Elden Ring 2 years ago, this was the fight that I struggled with the most on. But after numerous changes and the new update of Torrent during Elden Beast, this fight is not what it used to be. The main challenge of this fight is that you have to learn 2 complete different movesets in one boss fight. Radagon and Elden Beast have completely different flows to their fight, different health bars, different movesets. There's nothing they share in common besides being part of the same boss fight. So that can be a real threat for some people, and it was a real threat to me. But after adding Torrent to the game, Elden Beast is almost a complete joke. So after you learn his basic moves, he's almost no threat at all. He doesn't have a lot of health, he stuns pretty easy. So the main threat is Radagon. Once you learn Radagon, you can almost completely destroy Elden Beast if you learn a little bit of his moves. Number 7, I have Dragonlord Placidusax. Now, this is one of my favorite fights in the game. This fight is just super cinematic. Arguably the most cinematic fight in the franchise. For me, it's the second most cinematic. But anyways, I'm not here to talk about boss quality, we're here to talk about difficulty. Now, Placidusax is hard for multiple different reasons. For one, he has a pretty large health bar. He has a very large health bar. Another thing is, the main threat for Placidusax is the lightnings he can summon anywhere. Even though these lightnings by themselves can be pretty easy and pretty telegraphed to dodge, you can mess them up easily if you're in the middle of an Astral War combo, if you're just not paying attention. Since Placidusax can do moves at the same time as these lightnings in the second phase, you can easily be caught off guard. Another thing that makes him very challenging is that he can follow up after the lightning attacks with his fire attack. So if you get hit by the lightning, you may be low and he might be able to finish you with his fire, because his fire does an insane amount of damage. The main threat of Placidusax comes from his second phase. When he's teleporting everyone and doing his claw attacks on you, it can be very jarring and can catch you off guard. Even though these days I'm pretty good at dodging them, I can't ignore my first few playthroughs that I was absolutely scared of him doing those and I had a hard time tracking his moveset. So I think all of those combined makes Placidusax one of the hardest bosses. Number 6, I have Rellana. Now, Rellana is an interesting boss fight to me because I've heard some people say she's the hardest boss in the game. And I could not disagree with that more. Obviously, I believe she's a hard boss if she's number 6 on this list, but she does have a lot of things that make her easier. First of all, she's very aggressive. She does a lot of damage. She has a good amount of health. But I don't think she's as aggressive as some of the later bosses, or do I think she does as much damage as the other bosses. She does have a good amount of movesets, but again, her movesets are pretty limited compared to other bosses, and she does give you a lot of openings. The only thing that does make it a real big problem is her placement during the DLC. A lot of people could wander into her boss fight extremely early without getting Shadow Tree Fragments, which can make her fight super difficult, which is the experience I had with her. On my first playthrough, I was stuck on her for hours because I did not level up my Shadow Tree Fragments at all. But on replays, I found her to be much easier, and that's why she's not higher on the list. Number 5, I have Messmer the Impaler. Now, Messmer is such a hard boss to rank for me, almost impossible. Because my first playthrough of the DLC, he was easily the hardest boss for me. I died to him more than any other boss, even the final one. But after the first playthrough, no matter how many builds I try and how many times I replay DLC, I find Messmer to be the easiest boss in the entire DLC for me, or at least one of the easiest bosses. Now, even though I find him extremely easy on my replays, I can't ignore how hard he was on my very first playthrough. Now, there are two main reasons why I consider Messmer to be a threat. One is how much damage he can do. Two is the amount of combos he has. His combos also start in a very similar manner, so you can mistake what combo he's doing. And with the amount of damage he does, that can cause a lot of trial and error with you dying a lot. But once you learn his basic moveset and learn what combo he's starting with each attack, you will have him down easily, because he does not have a large health bar, he stuns pretty quickly, and he's weak to a lot of different status effects like frost or bleed. And so the second phase, he gets even more combos. But once you're able to learn all that, I'm sure you're going to have an easier time with him. And that's why I have him number 5 on this list. Number 4, I have Commander Gaius. Now, I hate this guy. Every other boss on this list, I have genuinely liked. Sure, do I get stuck on him? Yeah, they beat my ass, but I still enjoyed them. This guy, I don't enjoy him at all. I don't like him. He's so annoying. But let's get into the reason of why he's number 4. Okay, so first of all, he has this very infamous move that I'm sure you've heard about. It's his dash attack. His dash attack has the most inconsistent hitbox in all of Elden Ring. It's actually so bad. Now, you could dodge it completely fine one round, get the timing down. Then the second time, you try to dodge it in the exact same way and somehow it hits you. Another problem with a dash attack is that it can hit you twice. I've had so many times where his dash attack completely one-shotted me, even though I went into his fight with a good amount of Shadow Tree fragments and I was full health. Another problem I have with him is his fight is just so boring, man. He doesn't have a lot of movesets, but all his moves are really annoying. I'm just going to say it could be a skill issue on my part, but I just suck at him. I cannot dodge most of his moves. Every time I beat him, I'm praying to God and I get lucky. So that's why he's number 4 on this list. Number 3, I have Bayle the Dread. Now, this is definitely one of the hardest dragon fights from Software has ever made. I would say this is the second hardest. There's a lot of things that go into making Bayle super hard. Not only does he do a lot of damage, he has a lot of health. The only thing that could make the fight easier for you is that he staggers pretty easily. He has a lot of AoE attacks, and his second phase is one of the most insane second phases I have ever seen. I felt like I was running away most of the time. That's not to say his fight doesn't flow well at all, but it's a very difficult fight that will keep you on your toes. Number 2, I have Malenia. Now, Malenia is a very infamous boss. People literally know her for her difficulty, so I don't even know where to begin when talking about her. First of all, she's extremely aggressive. She does a lot of damage. She has lifesteal. She has 2 health bars. And she has one, if not the hardest move to dodge in the entire franchise. But even though she has all things going against her, she's still a very fun and challenging fight. One thing that makes her balanced is she gets stunned and staggered easier than any other remembrance boss in this game. She's also not strong against a lot of status effects. If you're running bleed, frost, poison, or basically anything else, you'll be able to do a lot of good damage against her. So even though she's hard, if you take advantage of those elements, you'll have a fun but challenging fight against her. Number 1, I have the promised Consort Radahn. Now, Radahn is a very interesting fight because he's the only boss besides Malenia that I've heard FromSoft fans not like because he is too hard. And I can see where they're coming from. I've heard a lot of people say he has artificial difficulty, and even though I don't agree with that, I love this fight. I can understand where the complaints come from. He's a boss with a lot of different combos, high damage, and a lot of health. And there's AoEs all over the map, so it makes it even hard to see where his moves are coming from. All these things definitely make him the hardest boss in Elden Ring and also the hardest boss from Software has ever made during their entire career. Before the video ends, I want to say a quick thank you to everyone that fully watched this video. It's also one of my favorite videos I have ever made. It was such a fun time. I had to change my video a few times because I kept changing my placements. I do think on average within its Remembrance boss fight, Elden Ring does have the hardest bosses in the franchise, so it was really hard for me to rank. But let me know who you consider to be the hardest boss in Elden Ring and what you think about my overall list.